Breaking down Arizona softball, the Wildcats' 25th appearance at the Women's College World Series. U of A getting set to take on Oklahoma State to open things up in Oklahoma City on Thursday night. And that is where we are joined by none other than Kim Doss once again from AZ Desert Swarm. And Kim has made the trek out to OKC. She drove the 14 hours alongside another member of the media. And first of all, Kim, tell me about that drive. That 14 hours, that's a long drive, but how'd that go for you guys?
It's a long drive. The parts of New Mexico were very barren when you come up the east side of New Mexico. And then the rain has been insane this today. So we luckily made it all in one piece, but we were worried there for a while.
You mentioned the rain. They had to move a lot of the activities indoors today in terms of the practices on Wednesday for the teams. There is some light rain in the forecast for the morning hours of Thursday. It appears, though, that everything should be cleared out there in Oklahoma City by game time for the Wildcats and the Oklahoma State Cowboys, and Oklahoma State Cowgirls, I should say, as they refer to themselves. And I want to talk a little bit about pitching, and that's one of the things we focused on in the press conference, at least I did yesterday on Wednesday with the ladies, and the difference that we're seeing. And I had thrown out the stats earlier this week, Kim, how, I mean, the ERA over these 5 games is so dramatically different than the last 6 games of the regular season. I mean, Hannah Bowen and Devin Netz with a 1.16 earned run average in the postseason compared to over those last 6 games where they gave up 29 earned runs in the 2 series against Cal and Stanford. Now, you have seen a lot more of these games than I have in person. What do you think is the difference? Why all of a sudden are these 2 girls so much better than what we saw in the regular season?
Well, I think for Bowen, she's a 5th-year senior. She's coming to the end of it. And I think she's really going after these hitters a lot more than she did in the regular season. And most importantly, she's not giving up the home runs. That was really causing problems. Arizona gave up more home runs than anyone else in the Pac-12 this year. They hit more, but they also gave up more. And then you have Nets, and she is just not putting people on base at the same rate she did in the regular season. And that is huge. You get less pressure on your defense, who's done a fabulous job, but you never want to put all that pressure on a young defense. And she's done a very good job of taking care of her business and keeping those runners off base.
And I want to give you one theory that I have in terms of this, Kim, and when we talk about how home field advantage is so important, but I actually think it's better for this pitching staff that they have not been here in Arizona. And stay with me on this. The air out here is much thinner than it is in a lot of these places where they've gone, Columbia down to Starkville, where you've got more humid conditions. And I think that's actually helped this pitching staff from the simple fact that you mentioned the home runs. It has kept the ball in the yard. We look back in that game that Hannah Bowen pitched, game 1 of that super regional. There were 2 balls that probably would have been home runs here in Arizona. You talk about that first inning ball that Janelle Miono caught over the wall in center field, and then the situation later with the bases loaded where she caught another one on the warning track. Those 2 balls are probably home runs here in Arizona, and now all of a sudden you're out of that game. And you talked about the walks too. Keeping those extra base runners off base has been so critical to keeping Arizona out of huge innings for this pitching staff.
Right, and also the double plays they're getting. The double plays, they had 3 in that last game Nets pitched, and it kept big innings from happening. So they really have to credit that middle infield for getting that done. You know, as far as the home runs, what I find interesting is that it's helping the pitchers, but the hitters are still hitting out for Arizona. And I think that just goes to show how great those hitters are. They're still scoring most of their runs via the home run. So that's one thing I find interesting about that conversation about the air, is that Arizona can still be productive on offense, even under those conditions.
Indeed. And you mentioned the defense in the middle infield. And I want to talk a bit about Sophia Carroll, because I put out a tweet during the game, too, about how she didn't have any hits in this postseason. She still doesn't. I don't think she's had a hit going back to the early part of the Stanford series. But she's played very efficiently on the defensive side at that shortstop position. No hits, but also no errors, and that's been critical.
Well, and I also think that with a lineup like Arizona, you can afford one player not to be getting those hits if she's contributing in other ways. When you've got so many players, they've got 8 of 9 hitting over 300. 3 of them are hitting over 370. So Sophia Carroll is not, if she's contributing on the defense, then you can kind of live with that.
I want to get in also to a very interesting connection we're going to see in this first game. Another U of A pitcher who we've not seen yet in the postseason, Maddie Ellis. Her sister, Miranda, is on the other team. She is a pitcher and a position player for the Oklahoma State Cowgirls.
Yeah, she actually started at Oregon and followed the coach to Texas when he got the job down there. And then she set out last year during the COVID year, and we didn't really know whether she'd even be back this year, but then she went in the portal, and you know, there were some people kind of hopeful that she would end up in Arizona with her sister. But she ended up in Oklahoma State. And when I talked to Maddie earlier in this season, I asked her if her sister had told her much about the Pac-12, and she said they don't talk about softball. So I thought that was very interesting, that maybe that was part of the reason she didn't come to Arizona, that softball isn't their tie with each other, that they have different ties. She took a little while to get going in the circle. She had been off for a year, you know, she hadn't pitched. She was doing very well, and then she got injured in late April. And she's just hitting for them right now. She's hitting over 350, though.
So let's hope that our Arizona pitchers can keep her inside of the ballpark. Oklahoma State and Oklahoma obviously going to be playing in front of very large throngs of their own fans this weekend. Just to kind of wrap this up, Kim, what are your overall feelings about what to expect here over the course of potentially this next week and a half?
Just like I said about when they went to Columbia, I thought that was a very good draw for them. I also think that this part of the bracket they're in is a very good draw for them.
Yeah, well, anything that's opposite of Oklahoma is a good draw.
Exactly. Exactly. UCLA gets to deal with that.
Yeah, there you go. Oklahoma and UCLA on the other side, we'll take that.
Exactly. So I think they have a really good chance these first few days of winning some games and advancing a little bit. Oklahoma State, they're not a power hitting team. They've got 3 hitters with 10 or more home runs, but it's like 11 home runs and 2 with 10. So they're not hitting a lot of balls out, which is good for the pitchers. They do get on, they do steal a lot, so the defense will need to be on point. They've got some very solid pitchers, even with Ellis out there. Kelly Maxwell's their ace, and she's got a whip of 0.83, so she's not letting many walks or hits at all. And then Morgan Day is their other pitcher, who's a grad transfer from Illinois State, and she's doing well for them as well. But just as earlier in the postseason, they faced better pitchers in the Pac-12. These are very good pitchers, but they faced even better ones. So I think they have a good shot in this first game. And even if they lose, I think they have a good shot to win some games in the losers bracket as well.
All right, first pitch coming up 6:30 this evening against the Oklahoma State Cowgirls. Kim, tell folks where they can find your work.
You can find us at azdesertswarm.com, and I'm on Twitter, KimDoss71.
Kim Doss from AZ Desert Swarm. Kim, enjoy the week out there in Oklahoma State, and hopefully if the Wildcats are alive on the weekend, we'll check in with you again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, it is the Wildcats at their 25th Women's College World Series, looking to bring home yet another national championship. It would be number 9. Stay with us here for continuing coverage of Arizona Wildcats softball.